Yo, what's going on, everybody? Happy Victory Monday to all of you guys, and you are watching Vikings Down by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, got to talk about Brian Flores and why this Vikings defense truly does feel fully back. You got Andrew Van Ginkel back in the lineup. Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, Blake Cashman all had some great games yesterday, and if honestly I had to give a game ball, probably would have to give it to the defensive coordinator, Brian Flores. But if I had to give it a second game ball for this Vikings team, probably goes to J.J. McCarthy. We'll be discussing why he's a franchise quarterback here on the second half of today's show. But let's start off with Brian Flores and this defense, and why, if I had to give a game ball for yesterday's win over the Lions, it would have to go to him. And it all started on early downs for this Vikings defense, and that was stopping the Lions' run game. Because if you can make this Lions team one-dimensional, where you force Jared Goff to drop back a whole lot throughout the game, the Vikings defense clearly was able to take advantage of that. And the Lions' rushing offense yesterday, 20 carries, 65 yards, only averaged 3.3 yards per carry, had one touchdown, and their longest run yesterday was 11 yards. So clearly they were selling out on early downs to stop the run. And Jahmyr Gibbs, him only having 9 carries for 25 yards. If you told me that heading into the game yesterday, yeah, I would have said the Vikings were going to go win that football game. But he also slowed down David Montgomery, one of the best, power backs in the NFL. He is absolutely fantastic, but he limited him to 11 carries for 40 yards, had that one rushing touchdown on the 4th and short situation at the goal line. But Brian Flores selling out on the run. His, blitz looks yesterday were insane. I cannot wait to see what his final blitz rate is. I mean, it must have damn near been 80, 85%. They were sending the house. They're actually dropping Jonathan Gennard, Andrew Van Ginkel into coverage more than they have since Brian Flores took over as defensive coordinator. So it was a very complex game plan, but they executed it at a very high level. And if you guys want to show Brian Flores some love, we were very critical of him the whole week leading up to it for right reason. I mean, the defense looked absolutely horrible against Los Angeles Chargers, but you're seeing now with Andrew Van Ginkel, probably the most important player defensively back in the fold, like Brian Flores had a freaking day against the Detroit Lions. So if you guys want to show him some love, give me those SKOL flows down below. All right, so overall, the Lions offense yesterday couldn't really get going. They only had 15 first downs, only had 305 yards of total offense, 4.9 yards per play. They were 1 for 3 in the red zone, which was absolutely huge. And then also on top of that, you ended up blocking that field goal late, which was even more icing on the cake in the Vikings in the red zone. But 5 of 17 on third downs. And when you got Goff rattled, when you just start skipping some of those balls over the middle of the field, even though I thought Goff, he had a couple of big-time throws yesterday, but still just consistently throughout. This was by far the best defensive performance Brian Flores had against Jared Goff. And what I thought was so dynamic, and the Vikings actually were the first team since 2021 to have 11 pressures from their off-ball linebackers since the Dallas Cowboys did it back in 2021. And it started off with Eric Wilson. The twist concepts they were running up front with the linebackers was unbelievable. I mean, the hits and collisions he was given to Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, over and over again. I mean, as a running back, you're heading into the game saying, I'm going to have a big game. I'm going to be on the ground. I'm going to get it going. But you also forget about the blitz pickup side of things. I'm sure Gibbs and Montgomery woke up this morning incredibly sore because of that guy, Eric Wilson. Not only in terms of being a pass rusher, getting home to the quarterback, make some big-time plays on Goff, but also him in the run game. The Vikings had 10 tackles for loss yesterday, and Eric Wilson had 3. He was absolutely amazing. Also, Blake Cashman was amazing as well. And then Jalen Redmond, he didn't grade out too well according to PFF, but I still felt like he made some big-time splash plays. That one sack he had to push the Lions back in about 8 yards on that field goal that the Vikings ended up blocking. That ended up being a massive, massive play. And this guy just keeps on stacking good games where he's making an impact. He's having a couple sacks, having a couple TFLs week after week after week. And this guy has truly been a revelation for the Vikings defense because that loss of Harrison Phillips, when the Vikings traded him, I think that said more about guys like Jalen Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez, where the Vikings coaching staff clearly had some faith in these guys stepping up, being the defensive tackles of the future. And finally, we got Javon Hargrave. We finally saw him show up yesterday. He was absolutely unbelievable, man. 8 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, had a sack, 2 quarterback hits. He was truly dominant yesterday in the trenches. And you finally felt like the Vikings, for the first time against the Lions, we were the more physical football team. I never thought I would be saying that because the Lions, every single year, they push around the Vikings up front. They get the run game going. Their defensive line was really getting after it. And then also another free agency pickup, Jonathan Allen. He played some great football yesterday. 3 quarterback hits. Obviously, didn't have a TFL or a sack, but I felt like he was truly, truly dominant in this game. And both those guys just creating pressure from the interior. When you have a statuesque quarterback who likes to, really plant and, get his feet set, when you have interior pressure, that definitely limits that side of the game. So shout out to J.A. and also Javon Hargrave, and then Levi Drake Rodriguez, probably the biggest play of the game. Blocking that field goal was absolutely massive, or else maybe the Vikings would have potentially lost in overtime, but it wasn't just that with him. Had a massive sack, had a big-time TFL. He was just unbelievable yesterday. Now, I will say the one negative for the Vikings is that they have a clear issue at the cornerback position. Like Byron Murphy and Isaiah Rodgers. Byron Murphy, he was going step for step with Amon-Ra a couple of plays, and then it just turns out, Amon-Ra's one of the best receivers in the league. It's tough to limit him throughout the whole thing, but Isaiah Rodgers, man, if you take out that one game against the Bengals, he has been pretty poor this season. I thought the safeties, Josh Metellus in coverage, has struggled a little bit this season. So clearly the secondary has some issues. Now the question becomes, do the Vikings try to go trade for a corner at the NFL trade deadline? Obviously, good teams aren't trying to give up good corners. They are a very rare player right now in the NFL where there's not a lot of good corners. Definitely the play has taken a hit over the last couple of years, so teams aren't just willingly trading off these guys. But I think the Vikings might pick up the phone, and we'll have a video coming out later today when we go live talking about the Vikings trading for a corner potentially. But let me ask you guys, what would you do? Would you trade for a corner, or should the Vikings trade for a corner? Give me a T for trade. Give me a P for pass. You guys let me know your thoughts down below. I think they at least got to consider it with how bad the secondary played yesterday, because the secondary had a good game. I mean, this Vikings defense probably holds the Lions to, 13, 17 points right around there, but gave up some big plays, especially on fourth down. So you guys let me know. What would you do? Should the Vikings trade for a corner? T for trade, P for pass. Now, I do want to talk about J.J. McCarthy here in just a second, but before we do so, got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, Prize Picks. Now, the hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks. I mean, you can pick up to the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. If you guys want to pick more on J.J. McCarthy's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns, now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. You guys can also follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app, copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like, hit that follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today. Plug in that promo code CONS. We'll hook you guys up with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. But massive shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, so obviously yesterday for JJ was not a perfect game by any means. It's actually funny enough. He damn near had the same exact stat line he had week 1 against the Chicago Bears, 143 passing yards on the dot, 3 total touchdowns, 2 through the air, 1 through the run, or 1 with the run, and then having some clutch plays late in this game. But this play was incredibly clutch. 3rd and 7, Justin Jefferson not on the football field. The Vikings are coming out in the gun, running back to his left, and J.J. McCarthy, without having Justin Jefferson, you knew he was going to have to create something, and that's exactly what he did. Ended up peeling off to his right. Now, he made Anzalone miss on this. He kind of gave a little jab step to the middle, knowing he had so much space on the right sideline, and then he ended up just doing the rest, running it in, and then I thought it was awesome. J.J. McCarthy hitting the gritty. I will say, J.J., you're my guy, but you got to work on that gritty a little bit. That was probably one of the worst gritties I've ever seen. I mean, even the Kirk Cousins gritty, actually back in Detroit a couple of years ago, looked a little better than that. But, you could tell that this guy, he just sparks the locker room. Like, they feel the juice from him. They know he's an absolute sicko. I mean, there was one clip after the game, Kevin O'Connell giving him the game ball, and, J.J. McCarthy is in, a trance. Like, he is so jazzed up. Like, he truly felt like a serial killer looking at Kevin O'Connell. Like, he is just a sicko. His teammates love him, and he gave this Vikings offense the juice they needed to go into Detroit and obviously get a massive victory. But the play of the game for the Vikings came on this 3rd and 5. I mean, what an incredible play call by Kevin O'Connell, first off. J.J. McCarthy, 3rd and 5 situation, 1:41 left in the game. Lions still have a timeout. So let's just say you throw this ball, incomplete pass, clock stops at about 1:35. You punt the ball back. The Lions will probably have it with 1:25 left and a timeout. And on the previous drive, they went right down the field in 1:31 without using a timeout. So the Vikings very well could have lost this game in regulation if they don't pick this up, or you're at bare minimum probably going into overtime, even though the defense looked great. Like, the Lions offense, still one of the best in the league. They probably put 3 points up on the board. You go to overtime, tie ball game, 27-27. But this was a massive play, and J.J. ended up picking it up. And also shout out to Brian O'Neill on this play. Pancaked Aiden Hutchinson, who Aiden Hutchinson had a masterful game. But look at that protection by the offensive line. The interior blocking up well. Brian O'Neill on an island against Aiden Hutchinson. pancaked him, and J.J. McCarthy threw an absolute seed to Jalen Nailor. Jalen Nailor, are you out of your damn mind? This guy didn't have a catch all game, goes up there, mosses the Lions corner, and truly one of the best plays of J.J. McCarthy's young career so far. And that's like the intangibles we talk about this kid, where, I think the quarterback win stat can sometimes get a little overblown, but it's also just it's not a nothing burger. Like, it does matter. Like, because in these situations, like Kirk Cousins, does he make this throw? Does Carson Wentz make this throw? Does Sam Darnold make this throw? Probably does. Sam Darnold looked absolutely amazing last night. But still, J.J. McCarthy, game on the line, gave his receiver a chance, made a hell of a throw, made a hell of a play, and that's why the Vikings ended up winning this game. Now, PFF had his big-time throw percentage at 7.7 yesterday, having 2 big-time throws. I'm assuming it was that one to Jalen Nailor, and then also on 3rd and 9 early on in the game when he's evading the rush, resets his feet, throws an absolute beautiful ball to Jordan Addison. I probably actually counted him as like 3 or 4 big-time throws, but he only had 1 turnover-worthy play. And it also didn't come on the Jalen Nailor interception. That came on another play. I'm forgetting exactly what it was, but still that Jalen Nailor play, like, I thought it was a catch. And even the out route to Justin Jefferson on 3rd and 7, I thought that was a beautifully thrown ball. Ended up not being a catch. And then even like the swing pass to Aaron Jones, ended up counting that as a rush. So like the raw stats don't look, too fantastic. Literally the same exact stat line he had during week 1 against the Chicago Bears. But if they count that Jefferson pass, they count that Nailor catch, they give him that Aaron Jones pass there, he probably ends up going for 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. No interceptions, 3 touchdowns total. But this kid was just absolutely unbelievable. And you think about everything that was, working against him in this spot. Like, number one, you're playing the Detroit Lions on the road. Probably one of the toughest places you could play. Them coming off a bye also played an impact there. But you're 9.5-point underdogs in your 3rd career start, taking on the Lions off the bye in an absolute must-win game. Because the NFC right now, depending if Dallas wins tonight, they have 10 teams that are 500 or better. And if the Cowboys win, they have 11 teams out of 16 that are 500 or better. So if you would have dropped that game, you could have pretty much just kissed the playoff hopes goodbye. And also, talk about pressure. Like, Kevin O'Connell was, obviously not on a hot seat, but his seat was getting a little warm. I mean, Vikings fans were in shambles last week, and I was in shambles because it felt like the season really was a season from hell, and he saved the season. And he also put that soft benching narrative to bed. This is a ridiculous take out there. If any of your friends or if you see anybody on social media that's talking about the Vikings soft benching, J.J. McCarthy, just unfollow them, block them. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. But a lot working against them. He played some good time football. And overall, it was not a pretty game for J.J. McCarthy. Like, especially in between like the 2nd and 3rd quarters. He got some happy feet in the pocket. He was a little inaccurate outside the pocket as well. But still, when you didn't make some big-time plays, like, he made them. And, you could really tell that this locker room loves J.J. McCarthy. Like, you were looking at these guys after the game when Kevin O'Connell was getting out the game ball. Like, they almost viewed J.J. McCarthy as, like literally like their little brother almost, where he's just got so much energy, and they truly are, like, rooting for this kid. Like, they want him to go do well. And because he's not a perfect quarterback by any means right now, but he's still, in the biggest moments, like, he rises to it. He feels that. Like, he is addicted to those moments where it's like, hey, you got to make winning plays. Like, it even goes back to that Rose Bowl game against Nick Saban. Jim Harbaugh has one of his best teams of all time. They're down 20-13, 3:30 left. J.J. McCarthy makes many big-time plays, pushes Michigan right down the field, ties the ball game, ends up winning in overtime. And this locker room, they rally around this guy. KOC clearly loves him. He was his guy that he picked out to develop into a franchise quarterback, and just couldn't be more proud of J.J. McCarthy, 22 years old, had a hell of a day. So if you guys want to show J.J. McCarthy some love, type those 9s down below in the comments section, and we'll get on out of here. As always, SKOL Vikes.